I woke up to the smell of flowers and the faint hum of wedding music echoing through the hotel corridor. It should have been the happiest morning of my life. My only son, Daniel, was getting married in a few hours. Guests were arriving, champagne was being chilled, and the soft Chicago sunlight was slipping through the curtains like a blessing. But when I looked in the mirror, my reflection screamed back at me, a nightmare I couldn't recognize. My skin was red swollen, blistered in uneven patches that burned with every breath. The pain hit like fire under my skin. I stumbled back, knocking over a glass of water. It shattered on the marble floor, the sound sharp enough to slice through the fog of disbelief. I touched my face, and the surface felt raw hot like sandpaper soaked in acid. My heart thudded so hard it hurt. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening today. I pressed my trembling hands against the sink, trying to steady myself. The night before flashed through my mind. The laughter, the polite toasts, the moment when Claire, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, had smiled and handed me a small white box wrapped in silver ribbon. "A little something for you, Helen," she had said sweetly, her tone dripping with affection. "You'll shine like the mother of the groom should." Inside the box was a jar of luxurious night cream imported from France, she said. I had thanked her. I had trusted her. That was my mistake. Someone knocked on the bathroom door. "Helen, are you awake? The stylist is here." Claire's voice called out, calm and cheerful, the sound of a woman perfectly in control. My throat tightened. "Claire," I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Something's wrong with my face." There was a pause just long enough for me to feel the chill crawl up my spine. Then came her reply, smooth as silk. "Oh no, really? Maybe an allergy, dear. You've always had sensitive skin, right?" She giggled lightly, the sound of amusement barely hidden. "Don't worry, I'll send someone up with some concealer." Concealer, as if makeup could hide this disaster, as if she didn't already know exactly what had caused it. My mind began to spin, pulling fragments of memory together. The way she had insisted I use the cream right away, the faint chemical smell I had noticed, but ignored the way she had hugged me later, with an oddly tight grip, whispering, "Sleep well, Mom. Mom." The word felt poison now. The pain was spreading down my neck. I grabbed a towel soaked in cold water and pressed it against my face, but it only made the burning worse. My reflection looked monstrous, grotesque. I wanted to scream to call Daniel to make it all stop, but then I heard Claire's laughter again through the door, mingling with her bridesmaids. "She's taking forever," one of them said. Maybe she finally realized that this isn't her day. The laughter that followed cut straight into me. For a moment I wanted to disappear, to hide in this bathroom until the world forgot me. But then another thought crept in, small but fierce. What if this wasn't an accident? What if she wanted this? The timing, the cream, the laugh, it all lined up too perfectly. My stomach churned. My pulse raced. I had spent 74 years surviving life's cruelties, with grace, burying a husband too young, raising a son alone, teaching others to believe in goodness. But as I stared at my ruined reflection, I realized goodness had its limits. I slid down against the wall, the cold tiles biting into my skin, and whispered, "Why would she do this to me? To humiliate me? To erase me?" I tried to calm my breathing, but tears kept falling. The thought of walking into that ballroom with hundreds of eyes, staring with my face like this, made me sick. And yet deep inside another voice rose, quiet but dangerous. Maybe she's not the only one who knows how to play a game. I looked again at the jar of cream sitting on the counter, the elegant glass bottle with golden letters that gleamed under the bathroom light. It looked so harmless, so expensive, so refined. But inside, it lay a weapon. A declaration of war disguised as kindness. My fingers trembled as I picked it up. The scent that once seemed luxurious now smelled like deceit. I set it down carefully, breathing hard, my thoughts sharpening like blades. If this was what she wanted to make me hide, to make me ashamed, she would soon learn that I wasn't as fragile as she believed. I straightened my back, wiped my tears, and forced myself to look in the mirror again. The reflection still horrified me, but beneath the swelling and burns, I saw something else, the glint of fury, the birth of resolve. "You think you've won, Claire," I whispered, "but this story isn't ending here. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and took a photo of my face, then another of the jar. Evidence. Proof. Whatever this was, it wouldn't stay hidden. Outside the window, the wedding bells began to ring faintly in the distance, calling the guests to their seats. Somewhere below, laughter and music filled the air, unaware that a storm was brewing on the 7th floor. My pulse steadied, my breathing slowed. The pain hadn't gone away, but it had found purpose. If you were in my place, alone, betrayed, humiliated on the morning of your son's wedding, what would you do? Would you walk away and let them win, or would you make them face what they've done? Comment 1. If you'd fight back and hit. Like if you think forgiveness could ever be enough. 3 days before the wedding, everything still felt perfect. The house smelled like vanilla candles and fresh roses. My living room was crowded with flower arrangements, invitation cards, and boxes of decorations. Claire had taken charge of every detail, her voice always floating through the house like music. "Don't worry about anything, Helen," she had said, flashing that flawless smile of hers. "You've done enough your whole life. Let me handle this wedding. You just rest and look beautiful for the photos." It sounded like kindness. It even felt like love. But now, replaying those words in my head, I can hear the echo of something else, a subtle condescension, a quiet mockery I had ignored. That afternoon, she arrived carrying a luxury gift bag, her manicured nails gleaming, her perfume heavy and sweet. "A surprise for you, my beautiful mother-in-law," she sang, setting the bag on the coffee table. Inside, nestled in white tissue paper, was a jar of cream so elegant it could have belonged to a queen. "It's French," she said, emphasizing the word as though it were sacred. "Pure gold in a jar. I had it custom ordered for you. You'll glow at the wedding." I lifted the jar carefully, admiring its delicate glass and golden cap. The label read, "Crème Elegance Nuit." The scent was rich lavender citrus, something metallic beneath it. "It's too expensive, Claire," I murmured, feeling a pinch of discomfort. "I don't need—" She cut me off with a laugh. "Oh, Helen, please. You deserve the best. You've raised such a wonderful man. You're family now." Family. The word sounded warm, and yet her eyes didn't match her tone. They were bright, yes, but sharp, calculating. I should have noticed. But I wanted peace. I wanted my son to be happy, to believe his fiancée truly loved us both. I thanked her, hugged her gently, and placed the cream on my vanity table beside my wedding dress. That night, I sat at the mirror in my robe, brushing my hair slowly. The jar caught the lamplight, sparkling like a small treasure. I opened it and inhaled the scent again. Something in me hesitated. I had sensitive skin, Claire knew that, but her confidence, her charm made me dismiss the warning in my mind. I dipped 2 fingers into the cream, smooth and cold like silk, and spread it across my face. It tingled slightly, a mild sting that quickly faded. Beauty takes effort, I thought. Then I smiled, turned off the light, and went to sleep. When I woke up, my cheeks felt warm. I brushed it off as dryness. I had too much to do to worry about minor irritation. Claire came over again that morning, unannounced, holding a bouquet of white orchids. "Oh, Helen, you're glowing already," she exclaimed, her tone sugary. "That cream works miracles, doesn't it?" I smiled politely, even though my face felt tight, as if my skin had shrunk overnight. "A little warm, maybe," I admitted. "I'm not sure it suits me." She tilted her head, frowning briefly before the smile returned. "Nonsense. Your skin's just adjusting. Trust me, by Saturday, you'll look radiant." Radiant. The word burned in my memory. Later that day, I ran into Mrs. Callahan, my next-door neighbor, as I took out the trash. She glanced at me, squinting. "Helen, are you feeling all right? You look flushed." I laughed it off, saying I'd been working too hard. But when I got back inside, I checked the mirror again. My cheeks were pinker, my eyes slightly puffy. Still, I convinced myself it was stress. After all, weddings were overwhelming, and Claire was already handling most of it, choosing the flowers, rearranging the seating, even correcting my guest list. "You're inviting too many of your old friends," she'd said the night before. "Daniel wants this wedding to feel young, fresh, elegant, not nostalgic." The word stung more than I let on. I wanted my friends there, the people who had seen Daniel grow up, who had held me when I buried my husband. But Claire's tone made me feel small, outdated. So I nodded and crossed out 3 names. That night, I used the cream again. The sensation was stronger this time, a prickling burn that spread across my jawline. My reflection showed faint blotches beneath the surface, like bruises waiting to bloom. I dabbed cold water over my face, took a deep breath, and convinced myself it was fine. It had to be fine. The wedding was 2 days away, and I wouldn't be the mother who caused drama. The next morning, I woke to find Claire in my kitchen already preparing breakfast. "I let myself in," she said casually. "Daniel's running errands. I thought I'd surprise you." Her hair was flawless, her clothes spotless, not a wrinkle in sight. She looked like she'd stepped out of a bridal magazine. I poured myself coffee, studying her in silence. "That cream is working wonders," she said, stirring her tea. "You just need to use it one more night and your skin will be perfect for the photos." There was something about the way she said perfect that sent a shiver through me. It wasn't a compliment, it was a command. I sipped my coffee, forcing a smile. "You've put a lot of effort into this wedding," I said. "Thank you for taking care of Daniel. He's lucky to have you." Her smile widened. "Oh, I know he is," she replied, "and I want everything to be flawless. No distractions, no surprises." She reached over and touched my cheek lightly, her fingers cool and deliberate, especially not from anyone close to him. Her hand lingered for just a second too long. I froze, unsure if it was a threat or my imagination. The air between us felt charged sharp like broken glass. I stepped back, trying to steady my voice. "You don't have to worry about me, Claire. I've lived enough to know when to stay in the background." She laughed softly. "Good. That's exactly what I was hoping for." When she left, I stood in the doorway watching her drive away, her white car glinting under the sun. A sense of unease coiled inside me. Something about her felt wrong, too, polished, too perfect. I went to my vanity table and stared at the cream jar again. It looked innocent, sitting there like a promise. But deep down, something told me it wasn't a gift. It was a warning, wrapped in gold. That night, as I applied it one last time, the burning returned sharper, deeper, crawling across my skin like invisible fire. I told myself it was just nerves exhaustion. I told myself to sleep. I didn't know that while I dreamed of my husband's voice whispering, "Be careful who you trust, the poison was already working beneath my skin." By morning, the damage was irreversible. If someone gave you a gift that turned into your worst nightmare, would you call it fate or betrayal? Comment 1 if you believe betrayal always hides behind kindness, and, like, if you still believe gifts can come from love. The next morning, the pain had deepened. My skin felt tight, every blink stretched against the swollen flesh around my eyes. I tried to cover it with foundation, but the makeup only made it worse, seeping into the raw patches like salt into an open wound. Still, I forced a smile when the hairdresser arrived. "Don't worry," I said as she unpacked her brushes and sprays. "It's just a little allergy." The young woman, Emily, hesitated. "Allergy," she repeated, studying my face with gentle concern. "Mrs. Parker, I don't think that's an allergy. These look like burns. Have you used anything new?" Her voice trembled slightly, as if she already knew the answer but didn't want to say it aloud. I hesitated, glancing at the jar of cream sitting innocently on the vanity table. "Just a night cream," I muttered. It was a gift from my son's fiancé. Emily's eyes flickered with something I couldn't name. Sympathy, maybe fear. "If it burns, stop immediately," she said softly. "Please." But before I could respond, a familiar voice floated through the open door. "Oh, Emily, how's it going?" Claire stepped inside without knocking, her perfume announcing her arrival before her words did. Her face lit up in fake surprise as she looked at me. "Oh, poor Helen, you look a bit flushed." "Are you all right, dear?" Her tone was drenched in concern, but her eyes gleamed with something colder. Emily stepped aside quickly, intimidated. "She might have a reaction to a cream," the stylist said quietly. Claire gasped, too loud, too dramatic. "Oh, no. My gift cream, perhaps I can't believe this. I only wanted to help," she covered her mouth, pretending to be horrified. "Helen, you must have very delicate skin. Maybe it's time to rest a little. You've been under so much stress." Her words slithered through the air, sweet and poisonous at the same time. She turned to Emily. Why don't you go check on the bridesmaid's room? I'll take care of my future mother-in-law." Emily hesitated but obeyed, glancing at me apologetically before leaving. As soon as the door closed, the mask dropped. Claire's smile straightened, her eyes narrowed. "You really should be careful, Helen," she said in a quiet, measured tone. "If you can't look your best, people might think something's wrong. We wouldn't want any distractions during the ceremony, would we?" I felt my throat tighten. "Claire, if you think I'll stay hidden, you're mistaken," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. I raised Daniel alone. "I'll be there when he takes his vows, no matter what my face looks like." Her lips curved into a smirk. "Of course, Helen. You've earned that right." She paused, letting silence stretch. But imagine how embarrassing it would be for Daniel to have people whispering about his sick mother in every photo. She didn't need to say more. The message was clear: stay quiet, stay out of sight. Then she turned her tone instantly bright again. "Rest up, dear, I'll handle the guests." After she left, I sat still for a long time, listening to the distant sound of laughter from the hallway. Every laugh sounded like it was meant for me. My chest tightened, my breath short. Something inside me began to crack. That afternoon, I called Daniel, trying to keep my voice calm. "Honey, could you stop by? I'd like to talk before the rehearsal." He sounded distracted, impatient. "Mom, I'm in the middle of final arrangements. Claire told me you're not feeling well. Maybe you should skip tonight, okay? Rest up for tomorrow." "Claire told you what I asked?" My voice sharpening. "That I'm not feeling well." "She said you had a bad reaction to some skincare thing," he said lightly, "and that you didn't want people to see you upset. She's just trying to protect you, Mom. Don't take it the wrong way." "Protect me?" I nearly laughed. "The kind of protection that buries you alive." "Daniel," I said, struggling to keep my voice from breaking, "promise me something. If you ever have doubts about her, if she ever—" "Mom," he interrupted gently, "I love you, but please not today. She's stressed too. Let's all just get through this peacefully, okay?" Peacefully. He had no idea that peace had already been replaced by war. After the call, I sat on the bed staring at the jar of cream. My reflection in the vanity mirror looked unfamiliar, older, weaker. I reached for my late husband's photo on the nightstand. His face smiled back at me, frozen in time. I remembered his voice clearly, as though he stood beside me. "Don't mistake flattery for love, Helen. The ones who praise you the most often plan to use you the hardest." He'd said that years ago after a business partner betrayed him. Back then, I hadn't understood. I do now. The rest of the day passed like a fog, the house filled with people, relatives, decorators, photographers, but the air felt suffocating. Every time I caught someone's eye, they looked away too quickly. I overheard whispers behind my back. "Poor Helen, she looks awful. Maybe she's sick." I heard she might skip the wedding. She's too old for all this stress. And there was Claire walking among them, radiant, sympathetic, spreading her poison with a smile. "Yes, poor Helen," she told one of her bridesmaids, just loud enough for me to hear. "She's been struggling lately. I think she's a bit overwhelmed. You know how older women get sometimes." The words stabbed deeper than any burn on my skin. I clenched my fists to stop them from shaking. She was building her narrative, a story where I was fragile, unstable, irrelevant. A story that made her look like the patient savior, the caring bride. By evening, I couldn't bear it anymore. I went to the garden behind the house where the air was cooler and the noise faded. The roses I had planted years ago were in full bloom, their scent mingling with the heavy perfume of the celebration inside. I touched one of the blossoms gently, the petals soft against my damaged skin. "Robert," I whispered to the night, "what would you do?" The wind rustled through the leaves, whispering back in the dark. I closed my eyes, and for a brief moment I saw his face calm, steady, full of quiet strength. "You always said kindness was my weakness," I murmured. "Maybe it's time to prove you wrong." The door creaked open behind me. I turned to see Mrs. Callahan again, her face pale. "Helen," she said softly, "I just heard something strange from one of the bridesmaids. They said Claire told the photographer you might not be in the wedding pictures." My stomach dropped. "Not be in them?" I asked. "She said your skin problem would ruin the aesthetic," Mrs. Callahan whispered. "I thought you should know." I stood there, frozen, my hands trembling. For a moment I couldn't speak. Then slowly I nodded. "Thank you," I said quietly. "That's very kind of you." But inside something ignited. a slow-burning anger that replaced every ounce of self-doubt. Claire wanted me erased from my own son's wedding album. She wanted me invisible. And that was the moment I decided I would not only show up, I would make sure no one ever forgot me again. If someone tried to erase you from your own family, would you fight for your place or walk away forever? Comment 1 if you'd fight back, and like, if you'd let them live with their lies. By the following morning, my reflection had turned into something I could barely look at. The swelling had spread down my neck, the skin near my jaw flaking like dry paint. I pressed a cold towel against it and stared at myself for a long time as though waiting for the woman I used to be to come back. She didn't. There was only the new one, now tired, raw, and quietly furious. I dressed carefully, choosing a cream-colored blouse with a high collar to hide the redness. I told myself I would face the day with dignity, no matter what they said. But when I stepped out of my room, the hallway fell silent. Conversations that had filled the house a moment before stopped. 2 of the bridesmaids stood near the stairwell, whispering, their voices lowering as soon as they saw me. "She looks terrible," one murmured. "Poor thing. Maybe she shouldn't come." I pretended not to hear. I had been pretending all my life. Pretending to be fine when my husband died, pretending not to notice when Daniel stopped calling, as often. Pretending that Claire's smiles were real. But that day, the act was starting to crack. In the dining room, breakfast was laid out, beautifully fresh fruit, croissants, coffee, but no one looked at me. They just exchanged small, polite smiles, as though my presence was something awkward that needed to be endured. Claire was already there, sitting at the head of the table like she owned the place. She stood up quickly, her tone syrupy, sweet. "Helen, darling, you're up." "You poor thing, how are you feeling?" "I'm fine," I said, sitting down slowly, just a bit tired. Her eyes flickered over my face, and I saw the faintest spark of satisfaction. "Of course you are. Weddings can be so overwhelming for everyone." She glanced at one of the guests, a subtle cue that sent a small wave of laughter around the table. They weren't laughing at a joke, they were laughing at me. I pushed my plate away. "I'm not that fragile, Claire," I said, keeping my voice calm. "You don't need to talk about me like I'm not in the room." "Oh, Helen," she said softly, tilting her head as though comforting a child. "No one thinks that. We just want you to rest. Maybe it would be best if you skipped the photos today. I already told the photographer not to pressure you." The way she said it made it sound like an act of compassion, but it was really a verdict. She had already erased me. "Don't make decisions for me," I said quietly. Her smile froze for just a second before returning smooth as glass. "Of course not," she said, placing a hand over mine. "I just want the best for you, Helen. That's all I've ever wanted." I could feel the eyes around the table on me. I could feel their pity, soft, polite, poisonous. I excused myself and left the room before my voice broke. Back in my room, I locked the door and sank onto the bed. The cream jar still sat on my vanity, mocking me. I stared at it for what felt like an hour. The elegant packaging, the gold label, the faint shimmer in the glass. It was so beautiful, so perfect, so deceptive. My fingers twitched. I picked it up, unscrewed the lid, and sniffed. The scent was familiar lavender citrus, and that strange metallic undertone that now made my stomach turn. I dipped a cotton swab inside, holding it up to the light. The cream looked smooth, but near the edges it had started to separate tiny streaks of yellow and white. Something was wrong, something chemical. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Daniel. "Hey, Mom, are you okay? Claire said you were upset this morning. Please don't stress too much. Okay, she's really worried about you." I stared at the screen. Worried about me. The words twisted like a knife. I wanted to tell him everything, to scream, to make him see what was happening, but the image of his face stopped me. He was in love, blind and radiant. If I accused her without proof, I'd only drive him further away. I deleted the message I'd started typing and instead wrote, "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just resting." Resting. The word tasted like surrender. The afternoon dragged on. Every hour felt longer than the last. The house buzzed with activity, florists, caterers, guests arriving early, but no one knocked on my door. The isolation felt complete. Even the staff avoided my gaze, glancing nervously at my swollen face before turning away. I could almost hear Claire's voice in their heads. Poor Helen, she's not herself these days. By sunset, my strength began to fade. I lay on the bed, exhausted, drifting between sleep and waking. In my dreams, I saw flashes of my past, Robert's hands covered in paint as he worked on his canvases, the smell of turpentine, the way he used to call me his muse of patience. I saw Daniel as a child running barefoot through the garden, laughing as he waved a paper kite I had sewn for him. And then I saw Claire's face smiling as she handed me the jar, her words echoing, "You'll shine like the mother of the groom should." When I woke, the room was dark except for the city lights filtering through the curtains. My face throbbed. The pain was pulsing beneath the surface, now deep and constant. I went to the bathroom and turned on the light. The reflection that greeted me made my stomach twist. The redness had turned to a deep, angry shade. Tiny blisters lined my chin and temples. I looked burned. A wave of nausea hit me. I gripped the sink, breathing hard. Then I saw it, the jar again, sitting next to the faucet where I had left it. The label was smudged from my fingerprints, but now I noticed something new. A faint residue near the cap, oily and translucent, like the mark of something mixed into the cream. My heartbeat quickened. I grabbed my reading glasses and looked closer. The letters beneath the main label were faint, almost invisible, as if someone had scraped off another brand name before printing a new one. My hands shook. Someone had tampered with it. The truth didn't come in a scream. It came in a cold, steady flood that chilled every part of me. This wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. I thought back to the way Claire had insisted I use it, the way she had hovered when I applied it, how she'd checked my face every morning like she was studying her handiwork. I felt the air leave my lungs. The room spun. I sank onto the edge of the bathtub and whispered, "She wanted this. She wanted to ruin me." The sound of my own voice scared me. It was quiet, certain, and full of something I hadn't felt in years, rage. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't even shake. I just sat there, breathing slowly, letting the reality settle. I remembered the look on Claire's face at breakfast, that flicker of triumph when she saw me hide behind my collar. That was all the confirmation I needed. Outside, thunder rumbled faintly, as if the city itself could feel the storm brewing inside me. I reached for my phone again and scrolled through my contacts until I found one name I hadn't called in years, Evelyn. My oldest friend, now a lawyer. I didn't press call yet. Not yet. I needed proof, and I needed a plan. In the mirror, my eyes met my reflection. Beneath the blisters, I saw a glimmer of something fierce alive. The woman who had been humiliated was gone. The one staring back was someone different, someone ready. If you discovered that the person marrying your child was capable of hurting you on purpose, would you expose them or let the wedding go on? Comment 1 if you'd reveal the truth, like if you'd wait for the perfect moment to strike back. The morning of the wedding arrived with church bells ringing faintly in the distance and the sound of laughter echoing down the hotel corridor. For everyone else, it was a day of joy. For me, it was a battlefield I hadn't chosen. I opened my eyes to searing pain. My skin was hot, swollen tight to the point of cracking. When I sat up, my pillowcase was streaked with small flakes of skin and dried tears. I forced myself into the bathroom, gripping the sink for balance. The woman in the mirror was unrecognizable. My face looked as though it had been scorched, deep red patches blooming across my cheeks. My lips cracked, my eyelids puffy. I pressed trembling fingers to my reflection as though testing if this was a nightmare I could wake from. It wasn't. The door burst open. Daniel stood there, his tuxedo half-buttoned, his eyes wide with panic when he saw me. "Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. "What happened to you?" Before I could answer, Claire appeared behind him, perfect in silk robes, hair pinned flawlessly, her expression carefully masked. She stepped forward, resting a hand on his arm. "Darling, I told you she's had a bad reaction. It's not her fault. She needs to rest. We don't want her stressing herself not today." The word mom dripped from her tongue like acid. Daniel turned back to me, torn between love and confusion. Maybe Claire's right. Mom. You don't have to push yourself. Just stay in your room today. I'll check on you after the ceremony. Stay in my room. Hide like a shameful secret. My stomach twisted. Daniel, I croaked, my voice hoarse from hours of silent crying. I can't miss your wedding. His face softened, but he didn't step closer. Mom, please. Everyone will be looking at the photos. If you're not comfortable. His voice trailed off the unspoken words, hanging heavy in the air. If you're not presentable. Claire's hand tightened on his arm. It's for the best, she murmured. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room pressed down like stone. My son, the boy I had raised, the boy I had sacrificed everything for, was ready to push me aside to let me disappear, all because she had orchestrated it. The betrayal cut deeper than any burn on my skin. I turned away, unable to let him see the tears forming. Go, I whispered. It's your day. Don't worry about me. Daniel lingered for a moment, guilt flickering in his eyes, but Claire gently pulled him back. You'll thank me later, she whispered to him, not realizing I could still hear. And then they were gone. When the door shut, silence crashed over me. My knees buckled and I slid to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. For the first time, I felt the weight of complete defeat. I was invisible, erased. I pressed my palms against the cold tile, my body racked with sobs I couldn't contain. My mind screamed, is this what my life has come to? To be discarded like an old prop on the very day I should matter most. For hours I sat in that room, the sounds of celebration drifting up from below, music, clinking glasses, laughter. Each note was a reminder that the world was moving on without me. I thought of Robert, my late husband, and how he would have fought for me. I thought of all the nights I had stayed awake when Daniel was a child, rocking him through fevers, sewing his costumes for school plays, cheering from the stands at soccer games. And now, the man I had built my world around was content to let me disappear. The pain in my chest grew heavier. My body shook with the kind of sorrow that doesn't just live in your heart, it seeps into your bones. I buried my face in my hands and whispered, maybe she's won. Maybe I don't belong anymore. But then as the light shifted across the room, something caught my eye. A small red glow blinked from the corner of the ceiling, the hotel's surveillance camera. My breath hitched. Slowly, I lowered my hands, staring at it. Could it have captured her the night she brought me the cream, the moment she slipped into my room while I slept? A surge of adrenaline coursed through me. My body trembled, but not from grief this time. From possibility. From the faint spark of hope. I stumbled to my feet, crossed the room, and grabbed the hotel phone. My fingers shook as I dialed the front desk. This is Mrs. Parker, room 714, I said, my voice unsteady but urgent. I need access to last night's security footage. The clerk hesitated. Ma'am, I'm not sure we're allowed to. This is an emergency, I snapped, surprising even myself with the force of my voice. Call your manager. I need it now. I hung up before he could respond, my heart racing. For the first time in days, I felt something shift inside me. Not relief, not victory, but the sense that I wasn't powerless, that perhaps the story wasn't over yet. I stood in front of the mirror again, meeting the eyes of the stranger looking back at me. My face was swollen, blistered, a grotesque mask, but behind the disfigurement, I saw fire. I saw the woman Robert once told me I was the woman who never surrendered. You wanted me hidden. I whispered, my voice steady now. But when this is over, Claire, the whole world will see you. If you were pushed to the edge of despair and then found the one piece of proof that could turn everything around, would you use it, even if it meant destroying someone your family loves? Comment 1 if you'd expose the truth, no matter the cost, like if you'd stay silent to protect peace. The call came back faster than I expected. The hotel manager himself knocked on my door 20 minutes later, carrying a tablet under his arm. He was polite, nervous the way people are when they're afraid of stepping into something private. Mrs. Parker, he said softly, you asked for footage from the 7th floor corridor. We pulled the recordings. I ushered him in, my body trembling. My throat was raw from silence, but I managed to whisper, show me. He tapped the screen, scrolling back through the hours of last night. Grainy images filled the display hallways, elevators, shadows moving back and forth. My chest tightened. Then I saw her, Claire. At 1:14 a.m., barefoot hair tied back, wrapped in a silk robe. She glanced down the hall, checked her phone, then slipped a keycard into my door. The lock blinked green. She disappeared inside. I gasped so sharply the manager looked up. "Play it," I demanded. We watched as the door closed behind her. A full 2 minutes passed. Then she emerged holding something in her hand. Even in the dim light, I recognized the distinctive glint of glass. The cream jar. She paused at the threshold, looked around again, and carefully wiped the handle with the sleeve of her robe before retreating into the shadows. My knees nearly buckled. The manager reached out instinctively. "Are you all right, ma'am?" I couldn't answer. My mind replayed the images over and over, each frame hammering the truth deeper into me. She had done it. She had walked into my room while I slept. She had poisoned me with her gift. It wasn't paranoia. It wasn't stress. It was betrayal, calculated and cold. I lifted my chin, forcing myself to breathe steadily. "Email me that clip," I said, "and make sure it's time-stamped and secured." The manager hesitated, but something in my tone must have convinced him. He nodded quickly. "Of course, Mrs. Parker. I'll send it right away." When he left, I closed the door and leaned against it, clutching the tablet to my chest as though it were a shield. Proof. I finally had proof. My hands were shaking when I reached for my phone and scrolled to a number I hadn't dialed in years. Evelyn Harris, my college roommate, my dearest friend, and one of the most formidable lawyers in the city. We had grown apart over the years, life pulling us in different directions, but she had always been a call away. I pressed the button before I could second-guess myself. The phone rang twice before a voice warm and firm answered. "Helen, my God, it's been ages. Are you all right?" The sound of her voice broke something in me. I choked back tears. "Evelyn, I need you. I don't have time to explain everything, but it's Claire. She's trying to ruin me." Her tone sharpened instantly. "What did she do?" I told her everything. The cream, the burns, the whispers, the footage. By the end, my voice was hoarse, my words spilling out like poison I had been holding too long. There was silence on the line. Then Evelyn's voice, low and steady. "Send me the video. Now. And don't speak a word of this to anyone else, especially Daniel. Not yet." I obeyed. A few seconds later, she called back. "Helen, this isn't just family drama. This is assault. Intentional harm. If you want to, we can press charges. But before we go legal, we need to decide, do you want to expose her privately or publicly?" I stared at my reflection in the mirror, the blistered face, the swollen eyes, the broken woman I barely recognized. Slowly, deliberately, I shook my head. Publicly. She wanted me erased. I want her seen. Evelyn was silent for a moment, then said, "Good. That's the Helen I remember. Listen carefully. Tonight during the reception, I'll be there. Quietly. When the time is right, we'll show this footage. Not just to Daniel, not just to her family, but to everyone. She wanted a perfect wedding. Let's give her a stage she'll never forget." My heart pounded a mix of fear and exhilaration. "Evelyn, what if Daniel hates me for this?" "Then he was never yours to begin with," she said firmly. "But trust me, once the truth is out, he won't be able to deny it." After we hung up, I sat in silence, the weight of the plan pressing down on me. Below the music swelled guests arriving in glittering dresses and polished shoes. I imagined Claire walking among them, smiling, radiant, believing she had already won. But the storm was coming, and I would be the one to bring it. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt something powerful rise inside me. Not despair, not shame, but resolve. The shift from victim to warrior. I looked again at my face in the mirror. The burns, the swelling, the scars, they were no longer signs of defeat. They were battle marks, proof of survival, proof of war. If someone tried to destroy you on the most important day of your family's life, would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you strike back, no matter the cost? Comment one if you'd fight, like if you'd walk away. The church bells tolled in the distance, and the hotel was buzzing with last-minute preparations. Bridesmaids hurried down the hall in pastel silk gowns. Photographers adjusted their lenses, and the air smelled of lilies and expensive perfume. I waited in my room, the video clip secured on my phone, Evelyn's number saved on speed dial. My heart pounded in my chest, not from fear, but from a burning clarity I would not leave this day broken. When the knock came, it wasn't polite. It was sharp, deliberate. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Claire stood there in her wedding dress, flawless in white satin, her veil pinned with pearls, her lips painted a soft rose. She looked like a dream carved from porcelain. But when her eyes met mine, that porcelain cracked. Behind the sweetness, I saw steel. "You wanted to see me?" she asked, her tone low-clipped, nothing like the sugar-coated charm she showed the world. "Yes," I said, stepping aside. "Come in." She entered without hesitation, the train of her gown brushing the carpet like a wave. I shut the door behind her. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, two women bound by the same man but standing on opposite sides of war. "I know what you did," I said, finally my voice quiet but sharp enough to cut. Her lips curved into the faintest smirk. "What do you mean, Helen?" I walked to the vanity, picked up the jar of cream, and held it up between us. The golden letters gleamed under the light. "You gave me this. You told me it was a gift. But it wasn't. You knew exactly what would happen when I used it." She tilted her head, her veil shifting slightly. "That's a very serious accusation. Do you have proof?" I opened my phone, pulled up the video, and pressed play. Grainy footage filled the screen, Claire slipping into my room, the jar in her hand, her furtive glance down the hallway. I didn't need to say a word. The silence of the evidence was enough. Her face didn't crumble. Instead, she laughed softly, a sound that made my skin crawl. "You really went through all that trouble, didn't you? Cameras, managers, evidence." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "But tell me, Helen, do you think anyone will believe you? Look at yourself." She gestured at my swollen, blistered face. "You look like a woman on the edge of a breakdown, a desperate, bitter old woman jealous of her son's happiness. Who do you think they'll side with? You or me?" For a moment, her words stung. Because she was right, I looked monstrous, pitiful, a shell of who I used to be. But then I straightened my back, tightened my grip on the phone, and met her gaze head on. "They'll believe the truth," I said, "because I won't be silent anymore. You wanted me erased, but all you did was give me a voice louder than yours." Her eyes narrowed, the smirk faltering. "Don't ruin this, Helen. If you expose me, you'll destroy Daniel's life too. You'll be the one who tears his wedding apart, and he will never forgive you." The words hit hard, slicing through my chest. I thought of Daniel's smile, his laughter, the way he used to curl into me as a boy when storms rattled the windows. Could I really take this day from him? Could I really be the one to set fire to everything he thought was safe? But then I remembered the whispers, the pity, the shame she had built around me. I remembered my reflection in the mirror, the burns she had caused. And I remembered Robert's voice, "Don't mistake flattery for love." I leaned closer, my voice steady. "No, Claire, you destroyed this wedding the moment you tried to destroy me. I'm just going to make sure everyone sees it." Her mask cracked then, just a flicker, but enough. The fury behind her eyes was no longer hidden. She stepped back, smoothing her gown, her voice cold as ice. "Then may God help you, Helen, because when I'm done, no one will." She turned sharply, her gown sweeping behind her as she stormed out of the room. The door slammed, the sound reverberating through the walls like a gunshot. I stood in the silence she left behind my chest, rising and falling. My hands were trembling, but not with fear, with adrenaline, with power. The private confrontation was over. I had faced the monster in silk, and I hadn't broken. The real battle, I knew, was still to come. And it would not be behind closed doors. It would be in front of everyone. If you had the chance to expose someone who tried to destroy you, even if it meant tearing apart your own child's wedding, would you do it? Comment 1. If you would reveal the truth, like if you would keep the peace and live with the scars. The reception hall shimmered like a cathedral of glass and light. Chandeliers blazed overhead, the walls draped in white silk, every table crowned with roses and gold-trimmed china. Guests murmured in awe, sipping champagne, raising phones to capture the perfection Claire had designed. A string quartet played softly in the corner, the notes lilting, fragile, as if the music itself feared to interrupt her performance. And then there was me, sitting near the back, hidden in the shadow of a pillar, my face still burning, my skin still raw. I had dressed with care an emerald gown that once made me feel regal, but now it only seemed like a disguise. Every time a guest's eyes flickered my way, I saw it pity discomfort whispers barely concealed. The trap Claire had set was working. I was the monster in the room, and she was the angel at the altar. She entered to applaud her satin dress, glowing in the candlelight veil trailing behind her like a river of light. She smiled with the practiced grace of a queen clutching Daniel's hand, as though she had won the world. I felt my stomach twist. Daniel's face was flushed with happiness, with pride. He looked at her as though she were the sun itself. And for a moment, just a brief, excruciating moment, I wondered if I could go through with this. Then I remembered the footage. I remembered her laughter as she pretended to care the sting of her words as she erased me from the family album. I remembered waking up with my face aflame staring at a stranger in the mirror, and the hesitation dissolved. Evelyn slipped into the seat beside me, her presence a shield. She was dressed in dark navy, understated but commanding. She gave me a nod. "It's time," she whispered. My throat tightened. I clutched the USB drive in my hand so tightly I thought it might snap. The speeches began. Toasts rose like towers of lies. Daniel spoke first, thanking his bride for saving him with her love. Claire spoke next, tears glittering in her eyes as she praised her new family and the gracious mother-in-law who had welcomed her with open arms. The applause was thunderous. My chest burned. When the MC announced the slideshow, a curated reel of childhood photos, vacations, smiling memories, I felt Evelyn touch my arm. She nodded toward the screen. It was our moment. I stood slowly, ignoring the ripple of murmurs as people turned to stare at me. I walked down the aisle between tables, every step heavy but steady, my gown brushing the floor like a battle flag. At the front, I raised my hand. "Excuse me," I said, my voice shaking but loud enough to carry. The MC faltered. "Mrs. Parker, I'd like to share something," I said, my eyes locked on Claire's. Her smile froze the muscles in her face tightening just slightly. The room dimmed. The screen lit up. For a second, the slideshow began Daniel as a boy with his kite me holding him at the park. But then Evelyn, standing by the projector, switched the feed. The footage appeared. The ballroom went silent. On the screen, Claire appeared grainy but unmistakable in her silk robe slipping into my hotel room in the dead of night. She re-emerged minutes later, the cream jar in her hand, wiping the handle before disappearing into the shadows. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Chairs scraped. Glasses clinked against the floor as people turned to stare at her. "That's not—" She started, her voice breaking. I cut her off, my voice ringing clear. This is what she gave me. A gift, she called it. A gift that burned my face and left me hiding in the dark. She didn't want me here today. She wanted me erased. I stepped forward, my blistered face catching the harsh light. "This," I said, touching my skin, "is her gift." The silence was suffocating, and then the whispers began rising, growing, spreading like wildfire. "My God, did you see? She poisoned her. How could she on her wedding day?" Claire's face drained of color. She stood abruptly, the hem of her gown snagging against the chair. "That's not what it looks like," she cried. "I was only checking on her. She must have tampered with it herself. She's lying. She's jealous." Daniel's face had gone pale. He stared at the screen, then at me, then at her, as if the world had split in two beneath his feet. "Claire," he said softly, "tell me that's not you." "Of course it's me," she snapped, then realized too late what she had admitted. "But I didn't." The murmurs rose to shouts now. Guests stood shaking their heads. Some pulled out their phones, already recording, already sharing. The perfect wedding had become a spectacle, a scandal. Daniel's voice shook. "You tried to hurt her. You tried to hurt my mother." "No," Claire cried, her hands trembling, her mask shattering. "I only wanted—" What I said, stepping closer, my voice low but sharp as a blade, to make sure no one saw me, to make sure the mother of the groom was too hideous to be remembered. Her silence was the answer. Daniel's face crumpled. He turned away, his hand dragging through his hair as if trying to pull himself out of a nightmare. The guests erupted, some shouting, some leaving, some simply staring in disbelief. The string quartet had stopped playing. The chandeliers seemed harsher, now the golden light unforgiving as it bathed her in exposure. Claire's dream wedding had crumbled in a single moment, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I stood tall. My pain, my scars, my humiliation, all of it was transformed into something else, the undeniable truth. If you had the power to shatter a mask and show the world the monster hiding behind it, would you use it even if it tore apart the very day your family had dreamed of? Comment 1 if you'd choose truth. Like if you'd choose silence. The ballroom was no longer a wedding. It was a courtroom. Every guest had become a jury and their verdict was unanimous. Whispers turned into accusations. Phones lit up with recording screens, and the perfect orchestration Claire had spent months constructing collapsed into chaos. Mrs. Callahan, my old neighbor, was the first to speak up. She stood from her table, her voice shaking but strong. "I knew something was wrong," she cried, pointing directly at Claire. "I saw you sneaking into Helen's room 2 nights ago. I thought maybe you were leaving her a note. But now it makes sense." Gasps echoed. Claire's head whipped toward her eyes, wide with panic. "Lies," she shouted, her voice cracking. "She's just jealous, siding with that bitter old—" But another voice cut her off. Robert's sister, who had flown in from Texas, rose from the front row. "I saw the rash spreading on Helen's face yesterday." She said, her southern accent sharp. "She told me she thought it was an allergy. And Claire, you told me it was stress. You lied to my face." The room buzzed louder. Guests shifted uncomfortably, staring at Claire as though she had suddenly transformed from bride to villain. The photographers lowered their cameras, uncertain whether to continue documenting what was no longer a wedding, but a scandal. Daniel tried to speak, but his voice broke. "Stop, everyone, stop, please." His hands trembled as he turned to me, then back to Claire. "I need to understand. Tell me the truth." Claire's mask crumbled. She clasped his hand, her voice desperate, too shrill to sound sincere. "Daniel, please, you know me. I would never hurt her. She's making this up to ruin our day." Evelyn, who had been standing silently at my side, finally stepped forward. Her calm presence silenced the room. She held up her phone. "The footage has already been uploaded to a secure drive," she announced, her lawyer's authority ringing clear. "If anyone doubts the authenticity, the metadata and timestamps are available. And if necessary, we will take this to court. Tampering with someone's personal items and causing harm is not a misunderstanding, it's a crime." A collective murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted from the back, "Call the police." Another voice added, "Post it online, people need to know." Claire's face drained of all color. She spun in circles, her veil whipping around her like a storm. "No, don't you dare! This is my wedding!" Her voice cracked and tears spilled down her cheeks, but no one moved to comfort her. The same guests who had once admired her grace now recoiled from her desperation. Phones were already in the air, filming every second. Within minutes, I knew this would no longer be confined to these walls. By tomorrow, the city would know. By the weekend, strangers across the country would know. The bride who poisoned her mother-in-law for vanity would be an internet legend for all the wrong reasons. Daniel's college roommate Mark stood and shook his head in disbelief. "Claire, I always thought you were controlling, but this is sick." He turned to Daniel. "Man, you deserve better than this." Even the MC, who had been frozen at his podium, cleared his throat and muttered into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, it appears the evening has taken a turn." The awkward understatement drew a wave of bitter laughter from the guests, the kind of laughter people use when they're too horrified to do anything else. Claire collapsed into a chair, clutching her gown, her sobs echoing against the walls. But it was too late. The wildfire had already spread. A group of young guests at the back had gone live on social media. I caught a glimpse of a phone screen. The caption read, "Bride caught poisoning her MIL at the wedding." Thousands of comments were already streaming across the screen, hearts and angry emojis flashing in real time. I stood still, watching the scene unfold as though I were outside my own body. For years, I had been invisible, dismissed, humiliated. And now my truth was not only heard, it was undeniable, unstoppable. Evelyn leaned toward me, her voice low. "You see, Helen? You're not alone. Once the truth is out, it doesn't just belong to you. It belongs to everyone who believes in justice. I knotted my throat tight. Across the room, I saw Daniel staring at me. Not with pity, not with embarrassment, but with a dawning realization. His lips trembled, his eyes glassy, as if for the first time in years he was truly seeing me. Claire's father rushed forward, face red with shame. "We need to leave," he muttered, grabbing his daughter by the arm. But she pulled away violently. "No," she screamed. "This is my day. She can't take this from me." Her shrill voice echoed across the ballroom, but the crowd had already turned. The witnesses were united. The story had escaped the walls, and the wildfire could no longer be contained. If your enemy's lies suddenly burned down around them, would you let the world carry the flames? Or would you be the one to strike the final match yourself? Comment. If you'd finish what they started, like if you'd let the crowd destroy them instead. By the time the police arrived, the wedding was already over, not because the ceremony had been canceled on paper, but because the illusion had been destroyed. Officers in dark uniforms entered the ballroom, their presence as stark as the sirens that had briefly echoed outside. Guests parted like a tide, eager to whisper but careful to stay out of the line of authority. An officer approached me first. "Mrs. Parker, we've received reports of intentional harm. Are you the victim?" The word struck me. Victim. For weeks, maybe months, that's exactly what I had been. But standing there with Evelyn at my side and 100 witnesses who had seen the truth, I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I lifted my chin, my voice steady. "Yes," I said, "and I have proof." Evelyn handed over her phone, the footage, ready, pristine, undeniable. The officer watched in silence, his jaw tightening, as Claire's figure appeared on screen, creeping into my room in the dead of night. When it ended, he nodded curtly. "That will do." They turned to Claire. She was still seated at the table, her gown rumpled, her makeup streaked with tears. She looked nothing like the radiant bride she had intended to be. "Miss," the officer said firmly, "we need you to come with us for questioning." Her father protested, his voice trembling with rage. "This is outrageous. You can't humiliate my daughter like this in front of everyone." The officer didn't flinch. "Sir, this is a criminal investigation. Please step aside." Claire's eyes darted around the room, desperate, searching for anyone to defend her. But no one moved. The silence of abandonment was louder than any accusation. Finally, she stood clutching the folds of her ruined dress and allowed herself to be led away. Her veil trailed pitifully across the floor, no longer a crown of glory, but a shroud of disgrace. As the doors closed behind her, the ballroom exhaled. Conversations erupted again, chaotic and feverish. Some guests rushed to comfort Daniel, others pulled out their phones to post updates. The scandal was already airborne faster than any truth whispered in private. By the next morning, it would be headlines. By the next week, it would be a cautionary tale. I remained at my table, my body trembling from exhaustion. I thought I would feel triumphant, but instead a hollow ache spread through me. The scars on my face burned. My son sat across the room, his head in his hands, his tuxedo wrinkled, his whole future collapsing in a single night. My victory had come at the cost of his heart. He rose slowly, his steps heavy until he stood before me. For a moment, he couldn't meet my eyes. "Mom," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I don't know what to say." I swallowed hard, forcing back the tears. "You don't have to say anything, Daniel. Just know this, I would never hurt you. Not even when it meant exposing her." His eyes lifted, then wet and red, and in them I saw something I hadn't in years' belief. He nodded slowly, as if a fog had finally cleared. "I should have listened," he said. "I should have seen what she was." I reached out my hand, trembling as I touched his cheek. "You couldn't. Love blinds us all." The rest of the night was a blur. Guests left in clusters, whispering, glancing back at me with pity mixed with awe. The ballroom staff cleared half-eaten meals, toppled glasses, flowers that no longer smelled sweet. By midnight, only Evelyn, Daniel, and I remained. Evelyn squeezed my shoulder. "She'll face charges. Assault, trespassing, intentional harm. You don't have to carry this alone anymore." The weight of her words sank in. For so long, I had been silenced by humiliation, by whispers behind my back. Now the truth had been dragged into the light, and though it scorched, it also cleansed. In the days that followed, the wildfire spread. The footage went viral. News outlets dissected every frame, and strangers across the world debated what kind of woman could poison her own mother-in-law on her wedding day. Claire's family tried to spin the story, claiming she was under stress, but the evidence was too strong. Her reputation dissolved overnight. The boutique she once flaunted closed its doors. Friends who once clung to her name erased her number from their phones. As for me, I carried the scars visible and invisible. My skin healed slowly, leaving faint marks that the doctors promised would fade in time. But in a strange way, I welcomed them. They were reminders not of weakness but of survival, proof that I had faced fire and lived. Daniel stayed close in those weeks. At first, he was quiet, ashamed, grieving the woman he thought he knew. But little by little, he opened up, helping me with errands, cooking dinner at my house, sitting with me in silence when words weren't enough. One evening, as we watched the sunset paint the sky in gold, he whispered, "You saved me, Mom, even if it broke me first." And in that moment, I realized something profound. Justice wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about punishment. It was about reclaiming what was stolen, my dignity, my voice, my place in the story. Claire had tried to erase me, but instead, she had written me into history. If someone hurt you and the world finally saw them for what they were, would you forgive once justice had been served, or would you carry the scars as a reminder forever? Comment 1 if you'd forgive, like if you'd never forget. Weeks turned into months, and the city forgot the wedding scandal as quickly as it had consumed it. Headlines shifted to newer stories, and Claire's name faded from the public tongue. But for me, the echoes remained. Every time I looked in the mirror, the faint marks on my face reminded me of the night I refused to be erased. Scars, yes, but also medals. Not of beauty lost, but of dignity reclaimed. I began walking in the mornings again through the park where Robert used to paint. The trees were turning green with spring, their leaves whispering with life. Strangers passed me, and some recognized me from the story. A few stopped to say, "We saw what happened. You were so brave." At first their words embarrassed me, but soon I accepted them not as praise, but as recognition. I wasn't invisible anymore. One afternoon, I unpacked an old box of my husband's paintings, canvases I had stored away after his death, afraid they'd reopen wounds. But now, when I touched the textured strokes, I felt something different. Hope. Continuity. I hung one in my living room, a painting of a sunrise breaking through storm clouds. Robert had always said that storms don't end lives. They clear skies. Daniel visited often. He was quieter now, humbled, but there was a gentleness in his eyes that hadn't been there before. One evening, over tea, he whispered, "Mom, I don't know how to thank you. You didn't just save yourself, you saved me. If she had fooled us any longer—" His voice trailed off, but I understood. She might have destroyed more than my face. She could have destroyed our family entirely. I reached across the table and took his hand. "Son, you don't owe me thanks. Just promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll never let someone convince you to silence the people who love you most. Not for convenience, not for peace, not for appearances. Truth matters more than all of it." He nodded, tears filling his eyes. For the first time since the chaos, I felt at peace. That night, as I prepared for bed, I opened my journal. I hadn't written in years, but words poured out of me. I wrote about betrayal, about fire, about the way humiliation can either crush or refine you. And at the end, I wrote a single line. Sometimes the truest revenge isn't destroying your enemy, it's refusing to let them destroy you. The house was quiet. The city hummed softly outside. I turned off the light and stood at the window, the moon casting a silver glow across my scarred skin. I no longer hid from it. I no longer lowered my eyes. "Robert," I whispered into the night, "you were right. Flattery can be poison. But truth is a shield." I smiled then, a small but certain smile, because I knew the story wasn't just about a ruined wedding or a jealous bride. It was about survival, about finding strength where no one expected it, about proving that dignity once taken can always be reclaimed. And now I leave you with this. If the people closest to you tried to erase you, would you have the courage to stand scars and all and say, I am still here? Comment 1 if you believe scars can be symbols of strength, like if you believe silence is never the answer.